So support from the BRM Institute now, and what is it? What help do you need in solving anything today? So we're going to get our problems out. There's a counselling session. There's 70 people here that can answer. So he's got a tough question from Aaron. There better be a really good tough one.
I was just going to ask, one of the questions that I've always kind of pondered is it can sometimes be quite hard to assign metrics to the work that we do. So when you describe to somebody what is the tangible output that a BRM BRM's work leads to, it can be quite difficult to say, our contribution has contributed to, £1 million, £1,000 or dollars or whatever it may be. Do you guys have any thoughts on what good KPIs and metrics are for business partner roles?
From a metrics perspective, it depends on where you're going to go with it and who you're communicating to, right? So if it's a team leader and you're evaluating working with your team, or are you asking more from the standpoint of it's a CEO, CFO, and they want to know what value you're bringing to the organization?
CEO, CFO.
Okay. So it really does start with value. And so take a look at, in terms of tangible and intangible, what have you and your business partners, what's the value that's come out of the relationships? And that comes from value plans. And that's where we find a lot of BRMs might not be doing those value plans. And so when it comes to articulating that value, they can't. And that's what I'd say to you right away. Start doing those value plans. Keep them simple, right? And if something's intangible, we still claim it, right? Like we saved business 47 man hours every week. We didn't fire anybody, right? We're keeping our people, but we claim those hours. And so that can translate into value. Map it back to organizational purpose as well. And that's the big one. You can't have value unless it ties to purpose. And that's where you want to start linking it to. So it goes beyond just the dollars and cents. If you're a government organization, right, what's the impact on society that you've done in the past and you're looking forward? So you've got a past, what we've accomplished, and then looking forward, what we plan to do. Is that helpful?
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you very much. Yeah.
We get a lot of pushback, like my PMO doesn't want to do value plans. My HR, my people function, they don't want to do value plans. I would tell every BRM team, we don't care. We're going to do them, right? And maybe we'll keep them internally for now. But the moment you start putting that value plan in front of your business partner and just say, hey, let's talk about this. What value is it going to bring? They get excited. And then you can use that value plan after they've gone live with something, a new initiative or whatever, and actually promote that business partner. Look at what they've done, right? Look at the things that we've accomplished. And so you've got the data in that plan and it goes viral that way. So
that sounds really good. Just out of interest, can everyone do a thumbs up if you use value plans? Just to kind of get a gauge across the room. So I can see two. I saw two. It'd be really interesting to see if there's any kind of templates or kind of pro formas that we could use, because I would find that really useful. It would help me have some context as to how to approach it and tackle it. So yeah.
Can I go ahead and interject here? Yep. So we have working groups. I mentioned with the Evolution Project, we have a working group called the Value Focused Organization Working Group. And as part of the evolution, every working group, I requested them to look at what templates do we need to create from a BRM Institute recommended template perspective that our working groups put together. And so I put in the chat, if you're a member, you have access to a webinar. We just had the BRM BRM Tools webinar series. We're in it right now. And I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had one on the value plan. I went and I put the link in there, and in there, the working group did a fantastic job of collecting the value plans that they all did or member templates that have been uploaded and came up with the nirvana of value plan templates. And we are making some minor adjustments to it so it has a function generic feel to it, because it's a little on the technology side. So we're trying to remove some of the language. That will be published shortly. I'm not going to commit to a time because we have some publication things we're doing, but hopefully by the end of the month. But take a look at and watch the webinar. It's about 45 minutes, if that, and it's absolutely fantastic. They give some real-time examples on how to use it in scenarios in their own organizations. The panelists from the webinar are actually working group members. So they did it. We asked them to present it, and it's fantastic. So take a look at that. And like I said, we will be publishing that probably, hopefully by the end of the month. Don't quote me on that, but hopefully by the end of the month. And then you can at least have something to work with.
I like the classic BRM thing there. You're managing my expectations. I love it, Marlene. That's it.
I'm going to scare
Aaron
you all.
has an acronym for that. So
something really important here. There were only 2 thumbs that went up for who's doing value plans. If you were to ask what's the single common denominator for why BRMs are let go over the last 8 years since the Institute, those that aren't doing value plans. They're the ones that are let go. They're not articulating value that's coming out of the relationships. Nobody knows why they're there. So I would encourage you all immediately start doing value plans, start working on those. Do them yourself, put them on the network in an Excel spreadsheet, whatever you need to do, but don't wait on that. Make it happen. It's the most critical piece.
And I just want to give my perspective is there's all kinds of roles in organizations, but the differentiator for a BRM is that they are looking at value from inception to end of life. No one else in the organization does that except the BRM. So that's the value you're bringing to the organization. If you can't articulate your value, then you need to understand how important value is, because that's exactly what you're supposed to be articulating, is not just the value of your role, but value to the organization through the value plans, and watching it from as soon as that idea comes in, that's when you actually start thinking about that value plan, all the way to when that solution is ready to be end of life. Your job is to show that the entire time. No project manager will do that. Nobody in Agile will do that. Nobody in a business analyst role will do that. Only a BRM or a business partner in your case of titles. So take that and know that you are special and valuable in more than any other role for that reason alone.
Yeah, and let me just clarify, Marlene, your comment there, we're going to publish the value plan template. We published the template 8 years ago. We were one of the first to put that out there for a value plan. We actually introduced the value plan. And so it's out there, all that's there. Marlene's talking about the new enhanced version that's coming out. But if you go out in our online campus and just search value plan, it's out there. So that's there for you.
Thanks for the clarification. It's the one demonstrated in the webinar. That's the one that we will be publishing. Correct. Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, next
question.
question.
Very much. So yeah, Guy is waiting patiently. So if we can open Guy's mic, that'd be great. Thank you, Jeremy.
Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Just want to say thanks for a really insightful session this afternoon. I wasn't really quite sure what it was going to be like, but it's better than I expected. I think I probably should need to say that I work for the National Health Service in the UK. I felt that we were making great progress with our partner organisations, in providing better patient outcomes and experience, and we were moving to very much a more strategic BRM role. Obviously, the last 18 months has moved us back to very much tactical. We've been rolling out mass vaccination programs, and I'm just really interested because I felt we were getting there. There's always going to be a bit of slip to tactical, and I can't fix anything myself. So I did see some other comments. Do I find it hard to move out? I don't fix anything. I facilitate, orchestrate. But I think it would be interesting to hear top tips from people and how you move back into that strategic place.
So it could be any of the other presenters, and feel free to put your hand up. But I think whilst we have the BRM team live from the US over here, there is no time like the present. If you guys wouldn't mind picking that one up, would you mind having a go, Aaron?
Happy to. So one thing I'll say would in the new evolution of the content, we're moving away from the word tactical, and it's really focusing more on a execution perspective. It's always there. There's always a level of execution type work that it's got to be done, right? And so as a BRM daily, you're going to be sometimes doing some strategic conversations, and sometimes we're just getting stuff done or working with others to get stuff done. So I'd say know that that's always happening, that you're never just strategic. Never happens. How you shift a conversation or a relationship back to being strategic, if it's broken, right, or just not in that place. I like there's a section in the online campus called Becoming a Trusted Advisor in 60 Minutes. So if you want to search for that, but it lays out a whole conversation that you literally have in 1 hour that shifts the conversation back to a business conversation, meaning where are we going, right? Short term, the next 3 months from a business unit perspective. What are your key performance indicators? What moves the needle for your function, right? And then talk about what your area that you're representing is doing to help satisfy some of those. Or, oh my gosh, we got to get some more resources to, to make those, to drive those KPIs. So you start having a business conversation, start building that trust up with that partner if you're not there yet. So is that helpful?
It certainly is, and I think in terms of getting additional resource in the NHS, that's a real challenge for us. It's about getting the most out of what we've got.
What you got, yeah.
But I think there's also a little bit because as I said, I felt we were there, and appreciate it's been a strange 18 months, but it's kind of like what are those quick wins? I will go off and have a review of that and just and look at that, because that may well be helpful. But it's just really, there's a whole group of people on here. I don't know if anybody else has had something similar and have just got any other thoughts as well.
Anyone else want to chime in?
That's a great question. Yeah, it takes that moment, I think, between realizing that you can help and actually getting on screen. Jade, is that something that you can help with in your experience, or have you just suddenly popped on the screen and now?
I have a question, actually.
Oh, I'm sure we've got a lot of people on this call. Has anyone had sort of similar kind of experiences to Guy, or can you offer any advice? I realise there might be a bit of a delay in these moments. Okay. Maybe
just in the chat, please. That'd be great.
Yeah, put it in the chat, and we're networking afterwards. And there's the LinkedIn group, so I feel like there will be help here. And obviously, BRM Institute membership is exactly the kind of place that you can get this support as well. So I think we've also got Adam Nicholson, who's been waiting patiently. So if I bring you up, Adam, if that's okay, or Jeremy, if you can bring him up, please.
I will voice Adam. Adam, we're going to lip sync together. So here we go. After 3, 1, 2, 3. Do you have any recommendations on how best to deal with internal politics?
Nice done.
Oh. Well, I mean, I can hand out. I've dealt with internal politics before, so I mean,
go for it.
I found the best way is to get them in a room together, and you just let both sides tell you the history for the first meeting, and at the second meeting, you very diplomatically say, that's the history. I'm here now. What are you going to do to move the situation forward? So I think there needs to, so basically my take home is let them vent, then tell them that you've heard them. And now what are we going to do to resolve it? And then every time they go back to, oh, in 1965, you promised me we'd have it automated. We go, yes, but now we're in the 2000s. We have different requirements, different needs and different technology, and push the conversation forward. It's not easy conversations. They are tetchy and stressful, but eventually you come out of the meeting with clear actions and you make sure people are deliverable on those actions. Then you get out of the blame game. And if people say it's going to take them 2 weeks, give them the 2 weeks to get it done, but give them a nudge halfway through to say, we've got the meeting in 2 weeks, are you on track to deliver? So that's how I've dealt with internal politics previously, if that's of any help, Adam. Oh, sorry, you're still on mute, Adam.
Yeah, we can see you're talking, Adam, but we can't hear you.
Adam, you're going to have to type it.
Okay. Do you know what I would do, Adam? Yeah, leave and come back in again, and then we can bring you up if your mute works. So what I'll do, I would like to come back at one point to a question that Richard Farrow, who I know because he's from APMG, our CEO. Thanks, Richard, is saying. And this is to the audience or Aaron, how can we build real relationships until people are allowed to travel to meet physically before the world has been unlocked?
So what I'm seeing the most, and Tom, you jump in here too, because I know you're seeing a lot of these relationships as well, but kind of what I see and what I hear that's working the most is just checking in, right? So do the one-on-one, how are you feeling today? What's troubling you today, right? Personal or work, and care, right? And so be real first, be authentic first, and then switch it to business. Where are we going? What are the challenges with business? And then what can I do as a BRM to help solve that? And then actually do it. And that's the piece right there. Don't just be the talker, actually come back, right? If you say you're going to send a PDF, if you say you're going to talk to somebody, email, introduce somebody, whatever it is, do it. You follow through. Tom, anything to add to that?
I was actually going to specifically mention the do it piece as well. So you nailed it. Every relationship, there is an important personal factor. So take the time, even if you feel like there's a million things that you have to do, take the time to ask about them. Simply say, hey, how's your day? If they start to talk about it and talk about something that's bothering them or something, just ask about that, get a little bit further, get a little bit deeper, and don't be afraid to lead by sharing about yourself as well. And once you continue to establish that personal relationship and kind of understanding and seeing the person that's there, using those emotional competencies and such, then when you shift to sort of tactical, let's get this done together version, exactly right as Aaron said, is if you make a promise or tell them you're going to do something, follow up and do it. And that is what really starts to drive value and build trust.
I love the advice here. I can't see the name, it's just slipped up, but someone's saying virtual brews and no business talk at all. I like that one. I'm very, very pleased to say that Adam is now unmuted, and
yes, that's great.
Excited to
Thanks
hear
very
you.
much. Thanks very much, everyone. It's been sort of fascinating afternoon. So thanks very much. A lot of my difficulties stem from the company structure. So I work for a Japanese company. I sit within IT, which is a European-wide function, but I support the UK business. The UK business is on a different reporting structure to European IT until you go back over to Japan, which at my level I have nothing to do with. So I'm trying to work for an area that I sometimes are in contrast, because sort of have differing views and opinions and even directions to my own department. And so that is probably the biggest difficulty in my role. And has anyone had any experience of anything like that?
Yeah, I was going to say, having spent all of my career in partnerships, right? So in a law firm and then in an accounting world, right? Yeah. It's a really challenging and complex structure in that it is one organization, yes, but it's made up of these silos of partners that have their own, balance sheets and income statements that they have to, address and meet. And so therefore you often get these conflicting, I guess, views on which way we should be going forward. And what I found has helped is when I think Jeremy Webb said it best, get them in the room first. And you'll be surprised to find how much focusing everyone's eyes back on the organizational goals rather than their individual seems magically sometimes to bring the focus back. And they sit there thinking, well, actually, you're right. We all benefit if we address this from the perspective of the entire organization rather than our own little silo. So that's something I've tried to do in the past, and it's, touch wood, it's worked quite well for me.
Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah, Adam, there's a good phrase you can use around that, is allies and strategic purpose, right? It's like, look, we're all allies here. We're all working together, for a bigger strategic purpose, and tie that conversation into that.
Yeah, thanks very much.
The other thing I'd say is stay out of the politics. Right? Don't take sides.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to spend a lot of time sitting on the fence.
Yeah.
There's been some great resources posted in the chat. I think it's Tom doing that. So thank you very much for some webinars that you guys have run, because these are definitely questions that I've heard popping up, in your content. And there's some absolutely fantastic articles on there that you can access as well. Jade, thank you very much for taking that question. I think you have your own question as well now, don't you?
Yes, I do. The question, thank you guys, Aaron and Tom and Marlene, for your time. Is again being up that early in the morning to join our webinar is just a testament to your commitment to the development of this profession. The question I have is around the BRM role is still fairly new in the UK, right? So you can go into organizations and say, right, I work as a business relationship management, and the question is, well, what is that? And clearly, as it originated in the US, I'm just wondering, what does that journey look like from what is that that you do to where you are now, and what does it look like in the US and organizations? Is the role, is it common knowledge, I guess, for most organizations in the States, or are you still in that journey of trying to, kind of build it up,
It varies, honestly, probably more by industry, right? So higher education's all in, government's all in, healthcare is all in now, and retail slowly getting there, so it really probably by industry and which ones have adopted it, and those that are talking about the value of advancing the BRM capability in the role. We're seeing big adoption on a global scale. That's the exciting thing. So 8 years ago, the battle was, what is this? We don't need it, right? The BRM, that's the person that answers the help desk phone call, right? Like, no, it's a lot more than that. So now the conversation is shifting. I'll tell you where I spend most of my time now is at the C level. We're getting interest at the C level saying, hey, look, we want to be that relationship-centered organization. How do we make that happen? And that's exciting for me because now we're at that adoption level. And it's organization wide. And so I mentioned earlier, it's not just IT, it's HR, it's finance, it's all these different areas where the BRM is starting to become prevalent. There's an awakening, there's a realization that organizations are made up of relationships. Pausing there for dramatics, right? They're made up of relationships. Everybody has a BRM capability, every organization. They need to advance it, and that's the wake up that's happening now around the globe. So it's super exciting to help to answer your specific question. What can you do? Get with whatever the right executive is, right? Maybe if you're in IT, start with the CIO. Let's make sure the CIO gets the value of this. How is your CIO going to leverage BRM to move all of technology to a converged strategic partner? Right, and we have that conversation, and then we encourage that CIO to go to the CEO and say, hey, look, technology can advance our purpose by advancing our relationships, right? Not being a service provider anymore, we're going to be a partner. We're going to lead with business as business, and it just changes the conversation, and then it'll start spreading organically across the organization.
I just want to follow up to that, Aaron, which is the adoption outside of technology and IT is where we're really seeing a big difference. It's really truly starting to take off, and that's why the emphasis of our content and the evolution of our content is to move it away from a function-specific type perspective, because it is being adopted in every function in every industry. I also wanted to point out that, sorry, there's a little bit of noise in my background. I apologize for that. I want to point out that we had a lot of negative effects due to COVID, but the positive that came out of COVID, and I hope all of you have actually realized this, is the importance of relationships. Organizations are focused more on relationships than they ever have been. They had to transition from an in-person environment overnight to a virtual environment, and how to keep those relationships with their employees and their coworkers and their clients and their customers. That became like a whole nother level than what it was before. So if you're looking for a positive out of COVID, that's it. That truly is it. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
That's great. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks, Marlene and Aaron. And Jack, I can see you've got a question. I think there's an awful lot of chat about hybrid working as well, which I do think it would be worth getting onto. But Jack, thanks so much, because you've been juggling a million things behind the scenes to try and get things that pop up so that we're not looking for everything. So you and Jeremy have owned this. So over to you for your question.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for kind of being here and answering all our questions. It's absolutely brilliant. Aaron, you just touched on this a moment ago. It's really important that the CIO understands the value of the BRM capability. Well, What would you suggest if they don't actually understand the value and they see no value in it at all? How would you overcome that? I mean, is it a case of you walk away and that's the time to go and find a role because that's disappeared? I mean, it's yeah.
I've done that myself.
How would you approach it?
Yeah, good question. So where we see traction, if the CIO doesn't understand it, first start with understanding what the CIO's top level goals are, right? Like, let's not try to put a square in a round hole kind of thing, right? If the CIO just doesn't care about relationships right now, we got some work to do. We got to educate the CIO on why relationships matter, and then elevate that to a conversation of how do we drive value out of those, and then link that back to that CIO's goals, right? Organizational goals. If that's not working, or they're not clear, like, oh, hey, we're agile doesn't understand BRM, you come right back to that. Let's get some peers, and that's where we found it. So like, I'll name drop Joe Topinka on our board, right? Top CIO of the year 3-4 times now. He'll get on the phone with any CIO, and it's just amazing when you get on the phone with a peer and they understand that, they have that conversation. There's an awakening of like, wow, I didn't even think about that. So find a peer CIO that might want to interact. Bring your CIO to our conferences that we have, right? We have a whole CIO track where they can network. So it's going to be about educating slowly. You can't just go in there and jam it down their throat. It's going to take some time and some effort. I have had, just being transparent, I mean, this was a long time ago. I had a CIO that just didn't get it, right? And so ended up, there's a lot of opportunity out there, right? So go somewhere else if the CIO if you're just not going to do it, right? But the other way too, depending on the dynamics of the organization, talk to the other C-level executives. Have the CEO come talk to the CIO, right? So we can educate around the CIO and have them come back and help us as well.
Yeah, I can just see in a sort of post-COVID world that question coming up quite a lot within the community, particularly as people refocus and restructure towards growth and kind of really becoming quite nimble.
Yep, good question.
And looking in the chat as well, it looks like Sarah said that's what she did as well. So it's really fascinating to see that, and look where she is now. So it's all about being brave all the time as well.
Just, Sarah, do you want to share your story for everybody? Maybe that might be helpful. Put you on the spot.
Love a bit of spotlighting.
Yes, I've started a BRM function in a company called Urenco, a multinational company, and I had 4 or 5 years in that role. The BRM function was going great, absolutely brilliant. We were adding tons of value. New CIO came in and said, can't see that we need you because everything's going great. And I said, well, everything's going great because the BRMs are making it go great. And I just couldn't get him to see the value in what we were doing. And I was looking after 16 directors in the head office, and I had people in the other regions looking after all their partners. And I said, well, if we're not there, who's going to do that? And he said, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's really going to work, with everything else he had to do. And there were other roles as he was doing his restructure, and I could have managed the SAP Competency Centre, and I just thought, what, if somebody's really doesn't believe that relationships are what makes this work, then it's not the place I want to be. So I took the package.
And was it the best thing you've ever done?
Yeah, it was a little bit rocky to start with, and the role I went into immediately after that looked like the best job on paper, but a really difficult culture. But right now, I'm in my best role, head of IT relationship management at Scottish and Southern, doing our bit for net zero.
That's awesome. We hear that all the time. When one door closes, there's always so many more that are 1,000 times better. So.
Yeah, definitely my best role now.
Good for you, Sarah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. I know you've got to be quite brave to come up here. It does feel a little bit like walking onto a physical stage, doesn't it? Wow, I just, you know, I know I keep saying it, but it's just so good. It feels like you guys have literally flown in from America, and I think that's what this pandemic has done, hasn't it? It really has made this a much smaller community. We can all reach out and touch one another. So thank you so much for giving up your time and giving us all that great information. I realise you have been up for a very long time. You're probably very tired, but we're going to have a closing summary and